Hey community! So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kat Ho and I go to Boston College, and this video is going to be a part of my How to Crush School series, and it's going to talk about study tips, note-taking tips, and just school tips in general to do well on tests and everything like that. So keep watching. Alright, so first I kind of want to talk about taking a lecture class. So read the textbook materials before the actual lecture, and that way you'll be more familiar with the material and it won't be as overwhelming to have so much information coming at you at once where you can't like pause the video or something. I had a really important class this year. It was anatomy and physiology, and I'm a nursing student. And the professor spoke so fast, literally at God's speed, and she would just read paragraphs of the textbook to us as if we couldn't read, and she would just like paste them onto the PowerPoint and just read paragraphs, which was not helpful. So it was really hard to absorb or learn anything at all, but she uploaded the PowerPoints beforehand, and that made it easier, so that to prepare for the lecture I would type up the PowerPoints like in Google Docs, so I could like format it the way I wanted and everything. And then when I was going to class, I would just type whatever extra stuff she said, and then other people would do it as like they'd print the PowerPoints and handwrite extra stuff she said. Other people would do it as they would just download the PowerPoints and type in like in the notes whatever extra she said. But I would definitely recommend like doing some sort of prep like that, so that you don't have to type everything or handwrite everything that she says. You can just already have written down or typed up the stuff that is already on the PowerPoint, so you don't have to waste your time doing that and then miss the stuff that isn't on the PowerPoint, you know? This was literally a lifesaver just because I wasn't frantically typing the whole time, and I could breathe and sometimes try to absorb what she was saying. Also, I chose to have my notes in Google Docs because one, like I said, I like the way that I can format it on my own, and two, it made it really easy to make study guides later because I could just copy paste my own notes instead of like having it handwritten and then I have to like type it again, or having it in PowerPoint, and that kind of transfers over weird. So that's why I really like doing that. Some professors actually record their lectures and like post them online, which is really helpful. In the first semester I listened to her lectures a lot, like over and over, and I think that helped me retain information a lot more, evident by the fact that my first semester grades were a lot better. But then second semester she actually took it away because she was angry at us. Well, whatever, tea. But my upperclassman friend, who's a year older than me, actually said that next year the professor that we'll have for lecture is like a way better lecturer, and she speaks slower and like actually wants you to be able to keep up and everything. And for her class, she would download the PowerPoint, type whatever was extra in the notes, and then later go back and like write by hand anything just to like help her remember stuff better, especially for studying. So that section was kind of about taking a lecture class, but then this next section is about taking more interactive class, such as math or lab, or just like any class that is smaller and, you know, there's more interaction and like hands-on type of thing. So for these classes, I would say raise your hand a lot and ask questions a lot, just to make sure you're still focusing and like in it and actually understanding the material. For lecture, it's really easy to just kind of like doze off or like get bored, but in these interactive classes you should take advantage of the fact that they're smaller, because it's designed that way for a reason. You know, the class is smaller and everything for a reason. You should be asking more questions, you should be more interactive with your professor and taking advantage of that. For my stats class, I went to office hours every couple weeks, and I would raise my hand a lot in class. And actually, I didn't realize it at the time until I took it away, but when I stopped going to office hours and I stopped raising my hand a lot, like that's when I really suffered, and I was like, wow, I really don't know this material at all. Because 9 times out of 10, your professor's actually going to be good, so what they're saying is actually going to be valuable and, you know, smart and important and easy to understand if you're just listening. So, asking questions and forcing yourself to like even if you don't raise your hand, to answer their questions like in your head, just to make sure you're constantly on par with what they're saying is really important. So the next thing I want to talk about is study tips. Oh, there's a bug on my camera. So my first tip is study in groups if possible. It would be ideal if you guys could take turns answering and asking questions to each other, just because when you actually have to talk aloud and explain something to someone, you realize where the holes are in your explanation and what you don't understand. That's a really good starting point to know what to study later. I'd say ideally that there are 3 people in your study group, because that's not too many that you'll get like left behind in that group work mentality, and not so few that you can't like bounce ideas off each other, and the chances are that if a problem comes up that you guys don't all know the answer to something, then one of you will know where to find it or how to find it or whatever. My second thing kind of goes along with that. It's speak things aloud. So this is similar to the last one, but different in the way that actually vocalizing things helps you remember them easier. And for example, try memorizing the lyrics to a song with and without saying the words out loud. Like, it's way easier to do it when you say the words out loud. So that's kind of my proof behind that. My third thing is stay moving. So walk around, don't just be hunched at your desk all day. Walk around and read your study guide aloud. And I think my thing about this is that, like, if you're walking, then naturally if you're starting to doze off and become unfocused, you'll slow down, or you might stop walking altogether. And that is a sign to you that either A, you need to focus again, or B, you need to maybe take a break and start again in a few minutes. So that is my tip for that. My fourth tip is, I kind of talked about this in my other video, which will be right here for you guys. It is the Pomodoro Technique. So basically for 20 minutes you study, you are not distracted at all, not on your phone, anything like that. Maybe your phone's even off. But then for 10 minutes or for 5 minutes, depending on what is right for you. After that, you can be distracted, you can get a snack, you can go to the bathroom, you can go on your phone. And it's just the idea that, like, you'll be really, really focused during those 20 minutes. But I talked about it in the other video, so you can go watch that one. So my fifth tip is creating flashcards that go both ways. What I mean by this, say you want to know the symptoms of a certain disease. On one side, just write the name of the disease, but then on the other side, write the symptoms. And test yourself in a way that you can, like, close your eyes, pick it up, and then whatever side, it's like, okay, you see the symptoms, then you know what disease it is. Or, okay, you see the disease, you know what symptoms it is. So that you can recognize it both ways and answer, like, both halves of that question, if that makes sense. My sixth tip is kind of, like, weird, but I like to listen to the Disney Instrumentals Spotify playlist, because it's, like, doesn't have words, so I'm not distracted, but it still makes me happy and keeps me upbeat, and it's honestly, the coffee house playlist sometimes just, like, put me to sleep. So my seventh tip is to color code things. So if all your notes are in the same color, then when you're going to take that test and you're like, oh damn, like, it began with a P, but there were 2 cards that began with a P, but this, and they both looked exactly the same, like all your notes are in the same color, then that's not really going to help you. But if you remember, all right, the pink note card goes with polycythemia, and the green note card goes with, I don't know, a different thing, then that will just help you more. And what would be ideal is if you could have color-coded flashcards that you could literally lay out on the floor or something, and, like, you could visually see the relationships between the different cards, and, like, it would kind of be like a brain frame. My eighth tip is to rewrite things in your own words. So there's 2 keys here. The first key is that writing things just helps your brain to remember things better. And the second key is that having it in your own words means that you have to actively think about it in order to be able to translate it. If you're just copying things down, then eventually it'll get to the point where you're, like, just copying things and not even thinking about them. But if you actually have to translate them to your own words, then you have to think about it every time. You know what I'm saying? Also, I wrote a little bonus tip for this tip, I guess, which is that I like to I like to read a sentence and then I'll translate in my own words. So for example, if my notes say Alzheimer's is a type of dementia that currently has no cure, then I'll translate it to Alzheimer's disease is a kind of dementia that's not been cured yet. And then I'll immediately write Alzheimer's is a type of dementia that's not been cured yet, and I'll say it out loud so that I've just said out loud and written an entire sentence, which means that it's a complete thought instead of just saying like Alzheimer's, write that, is a type, write that. Because then later I'm not going to remember the thought if it's in chunks in my mind. You know what I mean? So I think it's better to memorize full sentences or like say out loud full sentences at a time instead of just like little chunks. Another thing is quizzing yourself. So basically, like if there's some sort of online quiz you could take, maybe someone's made a Quizlet about it before or something like that, or maybe there's little questions in the book or something like that, or maybe you can go in the book into that chapter or look at that lecture and literally write your own questions, so that when you go to study you can look them over, and if you know the answer, then great, you can check that off for now. And if you don't know the answer, then that is where you would start your studying, and that will kind of give you a benchmark of what you need to know. So that's really helpful. My last thing, I also mentioned in my other video, which is figuring out your learning style and looking up study tools to combat that learning style. And I said it wrong in the last video, but the name of the thing is VARK, V-A-R-K. And if you go online to like VARK learning style quiz or something, just find out what your learning style is, and then you can Pinterest and Google and search up any type of study technique that goes with your learning style. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I love making videos. I love talking about school supplies, all of those things. So if you want more videos like this or you have any specific ideas, please drop them in the comments below, and I will talk to you soon.